My name's Calder Reyes. I'm 42, run a boutique architecture firm based out of Santa Fe. Married for 11 years. At least I was. The call came in on a Tuesday morning, one of those clear, brittle mornings in the high desert. I was sketching out revisions for a commercial gallery we were building near Taos when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Should've. Mr. Reyes, the woman asked. This is just a courtesy call from Mesa Credit Union regarding your late payment. Your account is now 94 days past due. I actually laughed. You've got the wrong guy. But then she read the last 4 digits of my social. My birthday. My home address. And just like that, something shifted. The air in the room got colder. Can you hold for a moment? I asked. I stepped out onto the balcony, phone pressed to my ear, looking out over the sandstone ridges in the distance. The credit rep kept talking, interest rates, repossession warnings, late fees. But all I could hear was the sound of wind chimes clinking gently from the porch below. A $67,000 personal loan, taken out in my name, 12 months ago. And the thing is, I never applied for any loan. I didn't even know Mesa Credit existed until that morning. But my wife did. Her name's Lana, and she used to work in finance. She's smart, savvy, knows how to speak the language of banks better than anyone I've ever met. And as it turns out, she'd been speaking it fluently while pretending to build a life with me. I didn't tell Lana about the phone call. Not that morning, not that night. I didn't even ask a single question. I just watched her. She came home like always, keys jangling, arms full of takeout from that overpriced fusion place on Canyon Road. She kissed me on the cheek, said her Pilates class ran late, asked me if I wanted miso salmon or the vegan pad thai. I told her I wasn't hungry. She didn't notice I hadn't touched my coffee from earlier. Didn't notice that I kept staring at my laptop screen, not reading anything. She chatted about her sister's wedding next spring, about how she was thinking of taking a pottery class again. And I just nodded, pretended. But in my head, everything was replaying. $67,000. In my name. Filed 12 months ago. And here's the kicker. The loan was approved from our home IP address. On a Monday morning, exactly 1 week after I'd left for an industry conference in Portland. She must have waited until my flight took off. The same day, she called to say she missed me and hoped the hotel bed wasn't too soft like last time. I checked the date again, then pulled up my credit report. That's when the floor really dropped. There were 2 new cards opened within the last year, both maxed out. One under my name, the other under a C. Reyes. Not Calder. Not even close. She'd used Carla. Probably thought it would blend in as a clerical error. Smart. Calculated. Also totally illegal. I spent the next 2 hours combing through transactions. It was all there: spa charges in Scottsdale, a jewelry boutique in Austin, luxury hotel stays in Denver and Santa Fe. Every line item felt like a punch to the chest. And then I saw it. 2 payments made to a man named J. Dalton. I didn't know A.J. Dalton, but she did. I recognized the name. It was one of her old clients from when she worked private wealth at Redwood Capital. She used to mention him back when she still talked about work at all. Said he was some trust fund cowboy who liked to invest in land he'd never actually walk on. Apparently now, she liked investing in him. My hands were shaking when I closed the laptop. I wanted to confront her right then, demand answers. But I didn't. Because I'd seen enough betrayal, in clients, in contracts, in people who smile wide and shake your hand while stealing your wallet, to know that the first truth is never the full truth. So I called my attorney the next morning. Glenn Marlowe. Not the kind of guy you call unless something's really wrong. He used to be a federal prosecutor. Had a stare that made liars go quiet in courtrooms. I told him everything. The loan. The credit cards. The payments to J. Dalton. He didn't say, "I told you so." But he had warned me before the wedding. Glenn never liked Lana. "You want me to run a background check?" he asked. "No," I said. "I want you to tell me how deep this goes without her ever knowing we're looking." He chuckled. "You want the gloves on version or gloves off?" I didn't hesitate. "Take the gloves off, Glenn." By the end of the week, Glenn had answers. More than I was ready for. It started with the basics, the kind of things you hope don't lead anywhere. But they always do. Lana had opened a P.O. box in Albuquerque, listed under her maiden name. 6 months ago. Around the same time she'd started consulting part-time, saying she needed creative space away from the firm she used to work for. There were wire transfers. Not huge, $2,000 here, $3,500 there, but frequent. Regular. Systematic. They were routed through dummy LLCs that led back to a Nevada-based holding company. All legal on the surface. Until you realize the LLC didn't exist until she created it using one of my old EINs from a dissolved side business I shut down 5 years ago. She'd repurposed my defunct tax ID to build a shell company in my name, and she was using it to move cash. Hide debt. Maybe more. Glenn forwarded me the documents in a locked drive with the kind of subject line that tells you life's about to split into before and after. You were right, and we're only halfway down the hole. I opened a file in my studio, the big one I built behind our house. The one with floor-to-ceiling windows and poured concrete floors. It used to be where I felt most in control. That morning, it felt like a mausoleum. The documents read like a financial crime thriller. Forged digital signatures. Multiple aliases tied to my credit history. A second phone number registered to a burner prepaid plan, listed as Carla R. Same name from the credit card. That's when I realized she wasn't just sneaking around. She was building a second identity. One that relied entirely on the infrastructure of my life. I sat there staring at her initials on that loan application, trying to remember the last time she'd looked me in the eye when she said, "I love you." I couldn't. Not because it had been that long, but because now I didn't trust any of those moments to be real. And then Glenn called. I pulled phone records. He paused, like he was choosing how much to tell me. She's been talking to someone named Jasper Dalton almost every day. Morning, night. Sometimes 3-4 times a day. I didn't say anything. Just stared out at the juniper trees in our yard, swaying under the wind. Calder, it's not just money. It never is. I didn't ask what he meant, because I already knew. Lana wasn't in love with me anymore, if she ever had been. She was in love with a better exit plan, and I'd funded the whole thing. But what she didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that everything she thought she'd built on my back, it was all starting to crumble, and I wasn't done watching. 2 weeks later, I flew to Phoenix for a commercial bid on a desert development project. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to stay put, to keep Lana in view. But business doesn't wait. And I needed this deal, not just for the money, but for the distraction. Something to ground me while my marriage quietly set itself on fire. I was sitting in a rooftop bar the night before the presentation, nursing a bourbon I wasn't really tasting when my phone buzzed again. It was Glenn. Figured out what the transfers were funding, he said. I braced. She bought land. Small lot. Southern Colorado. Transferred it to Jasper Dalton 3 weeks ago through a quitclaim deed. That was it. She wasn't just building a second identity. She was building a second life. On land she'd paid for with my credit and handed to a man I'd never met. I flew back early. Didn't even wait for the presentation. My assistant handled it. She understood. She always does. I landed just past midnight. Drove straight home. Lana was there. Curled on the couch, barefoot, wearing that old NYU sweatshirt she always claimed was her comfort zone. Her laptop was open. The screen glowed with a wire transfer page. She didn't hear me come in. I stood in the hallway and just watched her for a moment. Not out of nostalgia. Out of disbelief. Out of mourning for the person I thought I'd married. She looked up and froze. "Hey," she said, like nothing was wrong. I stepped forward, set my bag down. Sat across from her. "You lied to me." She didn't flinch. Just slowly closed the laptop. "About what?" I didn't smile. Didn't blink. "About everything." She hesitated. That half-second pause before a practiced liar builds their story. And then she started. "The money, Calder, I meant to tell you. I was going to. It was temporary. You were so busy with work, and I didn't want to stress you out." I raised a hand. "Stop." She did. But her eyes were still working, darting, scanning, calculating the angle that might still work. "I know about the loan," I said. "The credit cards. The LLC. The land in Colorado. Jasper Dalton. All of it." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You forged my signature on a $67,000 loan. You opened 3 credit lines in my name. You used my dissolved business to set up a fake company so you could funnel stolen money through it. And then you gifted real estate to a man you've been calling twice a day since last October." She tried again. "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that." For the first time in years, I saw fear flicker across her face. Genuine. Primal. "You hacked my life," I said. But you made one mistake. She swallowed. What? You thought I wasn't watching. I stood and walked to the kitchen, pulled open the drawer next to the fridge, the one where we kept the boring life stuff. Flashlight, spare keys, security codes. I handed her an envelope. Inside, copies of every document Glenn had found. Highlighted, tabbed, indexed. Her hands shook as she flipped through them. You'll be served this week, I said. Divorce. Full documentation of financial fraud. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Your name is on every transfer. She stared at the papers like they were in another language. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. You did, I said. That's the problem. She stood, panic rising. Where am I supposed to go? I didn't answer. She grabbed my arm. Please, called her. I made a mistake. I was lonely. I was angry. He made me feel useful. I asked. Smart. Seen. She blinked hard, caught off guard. Yeah, I said. He used you. You just didn't see it because you were too busy using me. She looked around the room like she was trying to memorize it. The furniture. The walls. The art she'd insisted we buy. Like maybe it would still belong to her if she could remember enough of it. I'll be gone in the morning, she said quietly. I changed the locks yesterday, I replied. You'll be gone tonight. She left just after midnight. A single duffel bag, her laptop, and that ridiculous scarf she bought in Milan, the one she never wore unless she wanted to feel powerful. No tears. No apology. Just one long look as she backed out of the driveway, headlights slicing across the adobe walls of the home we'd built together. The home she tried to leverage, flip, and gift to a man who thought trust was a synonym for target. I stood at the kitchen window and watched her tail lights fade into the dark. Then I locked the door behind her. Not out of drama, out of necessity. Glenn called early the next morning. Her phone pinged a motel off I-25, he said. She's trying to lay low. But her email account is still active, and guess what? Jasper Dalton just went dark. What do you mean? I mean, Glenn said, his number's been disconnected. His social profile's wiped. The land deed she transferred to him? He flipped it 2 days ago, under a different LLC. She gave him a gift, and he cashed out before she even packed her bags. A silence settled between us. She's not just broke, he added. She's been played. I should have felt vindicated. I didn't, because for all her lies and the damage she'd caused, Lana wasn't the only victim in this story. Just the last one to realize she was part of it. Police are reviewing the fraud report this week, Glenn continued. And the bank's already flagged the forged loan documents. Charges will be filed. You'll probably be asked to testify. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the dry ridgeline in the distance. What happens to her? If they can prove she forged your signature, and we can, she's looking at a felony. Wire fraud, identity theft, criminal misrepresentation. Minimum 2 years. Maybe more. The line was quiet again. Then Glenn added, You okay? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to say yes. That it was over. That justice felt clean. But the truth is, justice never feels clean. Not when it comes from someone you used to love. Instead, I asked, Can we freeze the accounts today? Already done, he said. That night, I sat in the studio. Same chair, same sketchpad, but nothing came out. My mind kept looping back to the early days, the first year of marriage. We'd barely had money, but Lana used to bring me coffee while I worked. She'd color-code my blueprints, organize my invoices. She said she believed in the things I was building. And maybe she did, until she believed in something easier. I looked around the room and realized it wasn't just the betrayal that haunted me. It was the possibility that she'd never really loved the life we made, just the version of it she could cash in. So I made a choice. I took down the framed photo of us from the wall. The one from our trip to Banff, where we'd stood in front of the lake, pretending we were solid. I wrapped it in newspaper, slid it into a drawer, and locked it shut. Because some stories don't deserve to stay visible. They belong in cold storage. By the end of the week, the bank had officially frozen all disputed activity. The fraud claim was active. My credit reports were flagged. Glenn's office had coordinated with state investigators, and Lana's forged documents were now part of a formal criminal inquiry. Meanwhile, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize. Subject line: Jasper Dalton, we should talk. The body was short. My name is Whitney. I was involved with Jasper. I think we've both been lied to. There was a phone number. A Colorado area code. I hesitated, then called. Whitney sounded tired. Not just from lack of sleep, from life. Her voice had that edge women get when they've been burned one too many times, but still keep hoping the next man will be different. I was with Jasper for almost a year, she said. Met him at a networking event in Telluride. He said he invested in land, talked about starting a wellness retreat. Said he'd just gotten out of something complicated with a woman from Santa Fe. I didn't say anything. Didn't realize I was the next one until I found out he was still getting money from her, she continued. Your wife. She's not my wife anymore. Right, she said softly. I figured. Whitney had been suspicious for a while. Jasper kept changing SIM cards, vanishing for days, claiming business trips to Arizona or Utah. But he never had any paperwork, never shared details. She'd finally followed his truck 2 weeks ago and watched him hand off a manila envelope at a gas station to a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days. I looked her up later. Found your name. Found the fraud report. I thought you should know. I thanked her. She didn't ask for anything. Didn't want to get involved legally. She just sounded sad. He does this, she said quietly. Builds a fantasy life with women who want to feel seen. Then drains them. After I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. I used to believe betrayal had a clean line the moment someone crosses it. But the truth is it creeps in slowly. A dozen little lies. 1,000 deflections. And then one day you wake up to a version of your life you don't recognize, shaped entirely by someone else's deception. Lana had been seduced by a con artist. But she'd become one too, whether she realized it or not. A few days later, I was walking out of a client meeting downtown when I saw her. Lana. Sitting on a bench near the plaza, sunglasses on, staring at the fountain like it could wash away whatever was left of her pride. She didn't see me, and I didn't say a word. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, emotionally. Like the scaffolding of the life she'd built had finally collapsed under its own weight. The next morning, Glenn called. She's been served. And she's agreed to a settlement. Quiet divorce, no asset claim. She's trying to avoid charges, but the state's still moving forward. What about Dalton? Gone, he said. Authorities think he's headed south. Possibly Belize. He's got a history of crossing borders when things get hot. It didn't matter anymore. The case was out of my hands now. So was she. That evening, I stood on the back deck of the house she tried to turn into a bargaining chip, staring at the horizon as the sun dipped behind the hills. For the first time in months, I felt still. The wind moved through the juniper trees. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called, and I stood there barefoot, holding a glass of cold water, breathing like the air wasn't borrowed anymore. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger is for the beginning. This was something else. This was closure. The trial was swift. Lana pled no contest to 2 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of identity theft. Her lawyers had tried to argue diminished capacity, stress, manipulation, emotional vulnerability, but the evidence was airtight. My signature, her paper trail, the money, the lie, all lined up like dominoes. She took a plea deal. 18 months in a minimum security facility just outside of Albuquerque. Probation afterward. Full financial restitution ordered by the court. She'll be paying off the debt she tried to pin on me for years. Not to me, to the bank, to the state, to the truth. Jasper Dalton, meanwhile, was indicted in absentia. 3 open warrants, 2 federal charges, and a new alias that barely lasted 2 weeks before he got picked up in Guatemala trying to rent a beachside villa with a fake Canadian passport. Whitney testified. So did 2 other women. All of them had the same story. Jasper promised them something better, freedom, future, reinvention, and handed them ruin. By spring, it was over. The house was quiet. Still mine. I replaced the locks again, not because I needed to, but because it felt like something symbolic. A ritual. Like sealing the past behind a door no one had keys to anymore. I'd started sleeping again. Started sketching again. I even accepted a new project from a client in Austin who'd followed my work for years. A full-scale community center built into the hillside. Clean lines, natural light, open architecture, a space for people to reconnect. It felt appropriate. One afternoon, as I was walking the build site, my assistant handed me a letter. No return address. Just my name. I almost tossed it, assuming it was some kind of pitch. But I opened it anyway. It was from Lana. A handwritten note. 3 short paragraphs. She didn't beg. She didn't blame. She said she was sorry, that she'd lost track of what mattered. That being seen by someone like Jasper had made her forget what it meant to actually be known by someone like me. She said she hoped someday I'd find someone who believed in me for the right reasons. Not because of what I could build, but because of who I already was. I folded the letter once, slid it into the drawer beneath my drafting table. Didn't shred it, didn't burn it, but I never read it again. Because closure isn't something you get from the people who hurt you. It's something you give yourself when you finally stop waiting for anything more from them. 6 months later, I met someone new. Not in some cinematic, slow-motion kind of way. Just at a gallery opening. She was laughing with her sister near a sculpture I designed 5 years ago. We got to talking. Then coffee. Then walking through the farmer's market like neither of us had anything to prove. Her name's Elise. She's grounded. No games. Smart in a way that doesn't need to be announced. She asked me once on our third date what the worst thing I'd ever been through was. I told her. She didn't flinch. Didn't look at me like I was broken. She just said, "And you still believe in people?" I said, "Not all of them, but enough." And that was the truth. Some betrayals take everything from you. But sometimes what they really do is return you to yourself. I built my house back. My name. My business. My peace. And I did it not in spite of what Lana did, but because I finally stopped letting her define what I deserved.